Yeah.
Her husband is, she's gaining weight and her husband is badgering her about
Yes.
losing it?
Yes, like he's I can't find because I normally delete them after I read them.
All right.
But it was like he's complaining about her weight. Oh, he said to her if she doesn't lose the weight, he will go.
Oh, that's too bad. So I would tell her it's his loss. It's his loss if he goes.
Because you can gain weight and you can lose
Yes.
weight, but your personality is the most important
Yes,
thing.
yes.
All right.
It's
Now that we
loss.
got that weight one out of the way. This one says, morning. I have my husband, but he treat me bad. I talk to wait. Morning. I have my husband and he treat me bad. I talk to an inmate in prison. He tell me to give him a chance and he will treat me the way a woman should be treated. Wait. You got in a jail for look for one man with in a jail out here. Have the sweetest things to say. He have time all day for talk.
I agree. So, what is the matter?
She wants to know, she's comparing the man in jail that's saying that he will treat her well to the man that's out here that's not treating her well.
Oh.
She wants to know which one to choose kind of thing. None of them. None of them. The man in jail, leave him alone. Let him lose your number because he's liability. Not that he is in jail, because I always clarify and say, sometimes wrong people go to jail. Like, you go to jail sometimes not... You don't necessarily have to be guilty to be in jail. That happens sometimes. There is some form of injustice. But if you have to find yourself in a place like that, then you have to work on you. Strengthen your own magnet. Disassociate from the man that you have. If he's not treating you good, first you have to examine yourself, because sometimes we just can't be satisfied. I say when you have a problem, start with yourself.
You have to. You have to. And you have to start with loving yourself first. If you don't love yourself, how can you love others?
Yes.
It's hard. I think it's difficult if we don't love ourselves first. And I had this issue in my 20s and my teens, because I grew up in Belize, where my father did abuse my mother, and that's how we came to America. He was very abusive, and after 10 years, she decided to leave. And so I grew up seeing that kind of treatment of how my father mistreated my mother, and decided that I wouldn't have a man mistreat me like that. And so, but I ended up attracting those kind of men anyway in my 20s. But when I turned 30 and I started trying to figure out I started looking at me. Is it me? Started questioning, what do I need to change? What is it that's making me attract these type of men? And I decided to start reading self-help books, including the Bible. And that's when I realized that I'm loved, I'm very loved, and I am loved because of who lives within me, and because of my faith. And I started to change the way I carry myself, the way I spoke, the way I treated people. And it has helped me a lot in the past almost 20 years now, loving myself first.
And I'm glad that you chose to share that with us, because a lot of people don't know how to take responsibility for where they are. We say that the man not come unless we allow him
That's
to come
right.
into our space. The man not just come out of thin air unless he broke down the door and come inside. But it's true. Oh, well, he treat me bad or she treat me bad. But you said, we find ourselves kind of finding the same kinds of people because we have the same disease or sickness or ailment, and we find a way to kind of quiet it in those short times.
Good point.
You know, so we have to take full responsibility. What were some of the things some of the initial things that you did to escape those relationships?
Well, I said no. After trying to make it work my way, I would just say no, thank you, and I would move on. So eventually, I got so tired, I was so miserable in several of them that I just said no, and I leave. I ended and I would leave.
Was there ever a time in your life when you would say, I'm going to maybe after the second one or the third one, I'm going to try a little bit harder because I'm tired of changing. I'm tired of looking. I'm tired of, I have to find another guy again. Did that thought ever cross your mind?
Yes.
And what made you make the necessary change when that thought crossed your mind? And I asked that to hopefully somebody that's looking, that's saying, well, you know what, I had 3 men already, I have 3 children already, 3 of them beat me, but where I want to do? You know, I want you to maybe say something to her or to him, because a lot of women out there beating up men as well, that will make them realize that settling is not the answer.
Oh, that's a great, great question or statement. That's one of the things that I did realize when I turned 30, that I was settling and that I didn't have to. And I finally got to the point of loving myself, finding out who I was. Because, Rhonda, for years, those in my 20s and even in my teen years, I thought that I was what my boyfriends told me I was, that I was sexy, that I was beautiful, that I was smart, I was talented, I was this superstar athlete, you know, with getting good grades. I thought I was what these adjectives were. And when I turned 30 and I started looking at me from within and finding out who I was and whose I am, that's when I realized I was settling, and I don't have to, because I am special. I'm loved. And I've been soaring ever since.
You know, and I know you probably need to leave, but for somebody that does not understand the true concept of love, they might not understand what you mean when you say you are loved. Because for them, love is, they equate love with a feeling and love with a person's face. So, like, Mary Jane might say, when I think of love, I think of my father. When I think of love, I think of my husband. But they need to understand that that is not the love that you are referring to.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The love that I'm referring to is, well, I've defined love for my own self, because as we know, throughout our lives, different things, or even people try to define love for us. And so I believe love is caring. And if I care about myself, I'm not going to harm myself or allow other people to harm me. And once I see the harm one time, I need to let them know how I feel, and let them know it shouldn't happen anymore. So love for me means caring. So when I say I love you, Rhonda, it's because I care for you and I don't want any harm to come to you.
And I have to ask you this, because a lot of times when men and women, they find themselves when you grow up in an abusive home, regardless, I think a lot of Caribbean people grow up in an abusive homes and they don't even recognize that it is abusive. But when you grow up in an abusive home, you either become one of the two, or sometimes a combination of both.
Good point.
You understand?
Clearly.
And was there a time that you took on the role of the aggressor? Because it gets crazy sometimes. In the real world, it gets crazy. And if you did, what made you say, no, this is not the woman I want to be. This is not the life I want to be. This burden I don't want to carry. How did you, and I'm asking you all of this, if you share, I would be more than happy. If you don't, I would respect. And I ask you this because I think that the audience that we have need as much information and as much to arm themselves with, so that they can go out and make better choices. Like, there's some girls that will say, well, he come home and slap me, but I slap him back. Then you feel that it's okay because you slapped him back. But it's not okay. It doesn't make it any less abusive. It means then that there's two abusers in the home. So
I hear your point. So since you put it as an aggressor, yes, I have been aggressive, but I've done it to defend myself. I don't hit anybody unless they hit me. And so, yes, in those relationships where it did get physical, I used my strength to defend myself. And like I said, when I turned 30, I realized I was settling, trying to make relationships that weren't working work. And when I turned 30 and realized, no, I'm loved, no one should be hurting me, and I shouldn't be hurting anyone either. I shouldn't be living like this. That's when I realized that once a man put his hand on me, it's over. I have to move on, because I'm not going to keep fighting.
It's too much work.
It's
too much stress.
It is not a good feeling. Let's say that.
I want you to help somebody understand the importance of spending time with themselves and learning themselves. Because I would imagine for any good healing to happen, that has to be a phase that somebody has to go through.
That's correct. And I've had to choose time when relationships fail. My relationships fail with men. I take time. Sometimes I take 6 months, a year, 4 years. And it helps. It really helps, because you find out so much about you when you take the time to find out what do you enjoy the most, what makes you happy. All these things are so important, but if someone is distracting you or something is distracting you, it's hard to really get to that point.
You know, I am glad that you stopped and said that, because a lot of people, I think, are afraid to be by themselves. They want a man or they want a woman because they think everybody else have one. It's like, you remember when you were young and everybody had a bicycle, you wanted one too? You know, even if you didn't know how to ride good, you wanted a bicycle.
Right.
Everybody wants a bicycle. You don't have, I always say, you don't have to have a man, you don't have to have a woman. Sometimes it is important. The reason why we find ourselves, in my opinion, in these toxic relationships is because sometimes we bring it, man or woman, we are the ones that keep carrying it. We're not brave enough to take responsibility, so we say, is them girl we then get out the bad, or them man out the bad, or whatever. We don't spend enough time with ourselves to realize what we are carrying. And one of the only ways, in my opinion, to figure that out is to be by yourself, center your soul, quiet your soul. Like Althea says, learn to be the person that you want. And if you are the person that you want, then you will attract the right person. A friend of mine
Eventually, I believe you will.
Eventually you will. It is like strengthening your own magnet. You're just
Yes.
there strengthening your
Yes.
magnet peacefully, quietly, and before you know it, something show up.
Yes.
And you will know what to keep and you will know what to let go, because you're not desperate anymore.
That's right. No more settling.
No more settling. You are not a person swimming in the river just about to drown. One more matter before you go.
All
And
right.
where you want to go? Ay. Morning. This one says, what some women and girls believe is that having a child will keep a marriage, but they got it wrong, because when the man want to go out go bad, he ain't going. That's true. That's true.
That's true. You can't stop them.
Man and woman, that's true. You
You cannot stop any human being from doing what they want to do.
And we say man no hold, picnic no hold man, and no hold woman. Children don't necessarily hold good relationships together. Good relationships are created because the adults that are involved want them.
They choose. That's right.
That's it. What would you say to a young person to help them to stay on their path?
Well, first they have to dream big. Dream big, because it's free to dream. So why not dream big?
Love it. Love it.
My mother was a big dreamer in Belize, and it rubbed off on my sisters and I. I have 4 sisters. We're all entrepreneurs here in Los Angeles, very successful. But because of the model, she dreamed big. My Panawan, she dreamed big, but she did dream big. So they fought about that. And so start with dreaming big, writing down your goals, the things that you would like to accomplish in life, whether it's your career or your personal life. What do you want? Do you want to get married? Do you want kids? Do you want a teaching career or whatever? Write them down. And then you find mentors who can help you. People, if it's teaching you want to go into, find a mentor, someone who's already doing it. Because it makes sense.
It makes sense. They're
They
already
can
on
teach
the
you.
path.
And they can tell you what not to do. Don't make those mistakes they made. And they'll tell you the positive things to choose so that you have an easier way, go at it on the journey.
For a person out there that's in a relationship that's less than pleasing to him or her, but they feel that they have to stay because of the children. A lot of people say that, well, I want to stay because I want my daughter have a father wrong, or I want to stay because I want my daughter have a mother wrong, and you're taking licks. Men and women alike, you're taking abuse. What would you say to him or her?
Well, if you're taking licks, you shouldn't stay at all. Because those kids are growing up seeing that's what I saw, as I mentioned earlier in this interview. I saw that, and I believe it has impacted those relationships that I had in my 20s. And it's not a good thing to stay in a relationship that is abusive. It's not healthy for the kids, it's not healthy for you.
You could end up without any limbs.
That's correct.
You know, and I always say this, and I think I've lived this to a great degree. I believe it's best to have 2 healthy parents outside of the home than 2 unhealthy parents inside of the home. So if I can be my best living across the street and your father can be his best living uptown, and you can see both of us living good lives, it's better than have us come home every evening and crying and cussing and noise, because then we're raising one dysfunctional child.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know I lived it.
But look how good you turn out.
Thank you.
You know, I have